Dress for success. A lot of us know about layering, but I don't think a lot of people know how to practically use a layering system when they dress. We hear about it all the time, so that's what we're going to talk about today. And I got thinking about this because I was out on a trap line, and it is cold where I'm at right now. This morning was about 38 degrees, maybe 35 to 38 degrees. It did warm up a little bit, so it's in the high 40s right now, but I am layered up, and I was using this system with much success, so I wanted to share that with everybody today. We get up in the morning, it's cold, we put on our heavy coat, we put on our hat, and we're out and about. But if you're carrying a lot of bags or heavy packs and you're moving around a lot, you're going to begin to sweat, and this is really where this system comes into play, and I'll walk you through what I did today and how it worked out perfectly for me. Our whole objective here in cold weather is we don't want to get overly sweaty because that's going to make our clothes wet and it's going to cool our body's core temperature down more, so we need to think about that. So when I first left camp, I had my big trapper's bag on. I was walking, there was a lot of weight in it, and about a kilometer in I got warm. Before I started to sweat, I took off my coat. So that's what you want to do firstly, of course, is get that outer layer off of you and get down to what you have underneath, which is normally going to be your mid layer. So my mid layer today is just a simple sweatshirt. It's nothing fancy. I walked a little bit more and I started to warm up, but before I took this layer off, what I did was I took my gloves off, walked a little bit more, I heated up a little bit more, and then I just took my hat, and rather than taking it off, I just moved it up a little bit, and that gave my head a little bit more room to breathe, let a little bit more heat escape, and I was good for a little bit. But because I was carrying a heavy pack, I can feel that I started to get a little bit wet between my mid layer and my base layer. So guess what? You just take off that mid layer and you keep on trudging, okay? And at this point, I was fine for the rest of the trip. I got back into camp, took off my bag, and almost immediately I could feel I started to cool back down. So I thought, well, I don't want to get cold, so I put that mid layer back on. I was moving around camp a little bit more, got a little cooler, pull the hat down, get the gloves back out, and put the gloves back on. So at this point I was warmed up, I was processing some wood, moving around, carrying some water jugs around, I was fine. But then I had to sit down and do a few projects, get my camera gear out to shoot this, and I got cool again. So all that I did was take my coat, put that back on, and I just left it open because it's gonna allow the heat to escape. It's not gonna be as warm as when it's closed down. And then as it got colder, from like, as you can see at the beginning of this video, I buttoned the coat up and went ahead with it. So that was my layering system. It worked out well. Just remember, you don't want to get sweaty and hot. You want to strip down until you're comfortable. Same thing goes for extreme cold weather. A lot of people are going to ask about that. Well, what would you do different? Well, I would change my mid and base layer if it was extremely cold. First thing what I would do is I would wear some type of thermal or wool base layer that's going to be more form-fitting to my body and get rid of the t-shirt. And then I would put on a heavier mid layer, which would be something like a sweater, even a hooded sweatshirt. They seem to work really fine for me. I don't worry too much about having that little bit of cotton mix in my wardrobe. And then of course my coat over that. And that mid layer is really, that's where the extra warmth is always going to come into play. I might want a hood, I might not want a hood. Hats, of course, wool or a brimmed hat is going to work. Then you could add gloves on top of this or have fingered gloves and mittens over it. So it's that same principle of layering, but understanding more so than anything is how you take away those layers and add those layers. So if you keep that in mind, that whole concept that we stress so much, layer, 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 works out better for you. Layering and not taking clothes off or putting clothes on is a waste of time. So you want to layer and know how to use that layering system. This was Dan Wowack at Coalcracker Bushcraft. If you haven't already, check us out at coalcrackerbushcraft.com. And until the next video, stay in the woods and stay layered, guys.